of course, you're a tea witch. Like, you have the water bearer in your chart. Like, it makes so much sense. Welcome to the Diaries of a Witch podcast. My name is Angelica Cresci, and I'm so excited because I'm here with Susanna Harlow today, and we're just gonna talk all about tea and crystals and so many things that I love. We were talking a little bit before we hopped on about how I love tea. I used to work at a tea store, and I don't know, I'm just so excited to talk to you about all of this stuff. So do you mind introducing yourself and telling everybody what you do?
Sure, of course. I am Susanna Harlow. On my books, I am SM Harlow. I am the writer and author of the Tea Witch's Grimoire. That was the first book that I came out with. And now my new book is A Tea Witch's Crystal Brews. So yes, I am, I suppose, what many would call a tea witch.
I love that. That's amazing. Um, do you know your big three?
As far as tea goes, or herbs,
That's a great question as well. Like your big three. I am referencing like your sun, moon, and rising in astrology.
oh, okay. Yes, my sun's Aquarius, my moon's Taurus, and my rising is Cancer.
I love that.
What about you? I'm really curious.
Yeah, so I'm a Capricorn sun, a Capricorn rising, and a Sagittarius moon.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Your Sagittarius really comes through. Yeah.
Yes, that's my big mouth. My gregarious energy.
Very beautiful. I love it. And I love Capricorns. I mean, I have like six placements in Capricorn.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I knew there had to be Cancer in your chart. I knew there had to be Taurus. It just feels very crystal and it feels very tea. Like I can't that's just what I'm getting from it. But I don't know if this is what you were thinking initially, but what if you had to choose like three herbs that you feel like you identify with or you go to, like what would those be?
Dandelion root, peppermint, and oh, this one's tricky. The third one is always tricky. Hmm. Nettle.
Nettle, yeah. I love that.
Hmm.
I love that. I love how protective nettle is. I just
Yes.
and it's like very I've been drinking it a lot recently. Like I was drinking it a lot during the Aries season just cuz it's like kind of I feel like it has that like Mars energy to it and I was like struggling with the eclipses and all of that. I was like I
Many,
need
many
something to
people.
like right to put my trust into and it's gonna be nettle.
Honestly, if you were to choose an herb, nettle would be the one that's so nurturing, it's grounding, yet it does fill you with that inner purpose to it. Not to mention full of divine feminine energy.
Yes, I love that. I love that. So would you mind telling us a little bit about like I call it like your magical origins, like where you started with magic in general or yeah, any of the things that you're doing now. Where did that begin?
I love that. I like that magical origins. Well, I would say, like most witches, I felt it from a very young age, from childhood. It in that time, I didn't see it as magical or witch related or anything like that. It was just something natural to me, that connection to the earth, to herbs, to just nature in general. And a lot of it also had a lot of inspiration from my grandmother, who was very spiritually gifted. She was a healer for many people in many different ways. And seeing her using her faith in her spirituality in connecting with herself and those around her, that greatly inspired me, and I guess inspired my Cancer as well, that inner Cancer and Aquarius. And I used to go around just trying to heal people, trying to just connect with nature at all times. But uh, it really, like, throughout the years, throughout my early teenage years, I felt like that calling, like most, to try to find more information. At that time, my grandmother passed away. So I was really just trying to find as much information into the craft as I could find at that time. Um, I I was blessed when I was 17 to work at a metaphysical shop, and it that really was, it was so needed. It was perfect. It was just the universe answered, let's just say that, where I could go in there, find a mentor, and learn all things folklore, witchcraft, recipes from oils, incense, um, powders, spells. It was just all the knowledge that I was just thirsting for. And it was there where I really felt that connection with herbs, like in a way that kind of, I mean, it was always there. I know that, but being able to actually learn how to trust my intuition and using that in spell work, in herbal selections, things in that nature really played a role. And then when I was 20, it was 19 or 20, I worked at an acupuncture clinic. It was a Chinese acupuncture, holistic care. But it was like half acupuncture, half tea room. So it was like a two in one. And it was there where I got to learn a lot of holistic healing. I got to learn about all things actual, like tea, like Chinese tea. And the woman, the acupuncturist, she was partnered with a generational tea master. And he taught me about all of the Chinese tea ceremonies, Chinese history, Chinese tea history. And it just, I loved it. It was so inspiring, so motivating. And while working there, it was kind of like it's a whole new epiphany of, you know, bring my witchy self to tea self, And I did have to serve tea to people, whenever they came in searching for healing. And it was during that time where whenever people came in and they were searching for anything specific, healing, peace of mind, grounding, I used to put those intentions into their tea when I would serve it to them. And that's kind of where it was just like, this is perfect. I see how these people are reacting and are leaving, and they're leaving a little bit more at peace, a little bit more grounded, a little bit more uplifted. So I went with that. And after working there, I also worked at a tea shop too, and like a regular tea shop. And I just continued that. I continued that nature. I started collecting a whole lot more tea at that time. I started really broadening my practice in terms of hosting tea parties, hosting tea circles, just with friends at first, and then more friends and more people started coming in, and we started just really just enjoying it, enjoying the Sabbats, enjoying the full moons, and it just, yeah, it grew from there. And yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah. And I think that maybe, like, if, I don't know, like, if you're coming into this and you're thinking about tea, like, it's obviously very comforting, and there's so much, like, yeah, like warmth, and like you can kind of feel the magic of just like a warm cup of something, right? But I think that there's also this whole other aspect to it where it's like, okay, we're literally like steeping herbs, right? And these herbs are also like allies, and they have personalities, and they like you sprinkle them on your candle and you're like, this is magic, but it's like you're literally like
Yes.
drinking them, right? With tea, at least like
Yes.
in an herbal tea. Even just like even like regular black tea or green tea, it's like it's
Mhm.
still there's still properties there, right? That you are like literally ingesting. So it I think at first I never or I it took a while for me to like make that connection of like, oh, this isn't
Mhm.
just like a beverage that like, the majority of the world drinks on a daily basis. This is like something that can actually be seen as like a potion or like literally, like not even like
Yes.
facetiously, like it's like
Yes.
actually a potion.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I love that. I love the fact that you're literally like infusing yourself with the magic of the herbs and the magic of your intentions in yourself. It's wonderful. It activates all the senses, whether you're doing it mindfully, meditatively, or actually with intentions to manifest your desire. It's a perfect, well-rounded spell, honestly, in itself. It can be as simple or it can be as extravagant as you want. It can be quick on the go or it can be during a full moon night. That's what I absolutely enjoyed about it.
Yeah. Something that a lot of people ask me is that, or that I hear from like listeners or clients or whoever, is like, how do I do witchcraft on like a day-to-day basis, or how do I do it when I don't really want to do it, or like how do I interact with it in a more like integrated way essentially. And I feel like this is a really good way to do it. Is that sort of,
Mm-hmm.
I know you had this like almost like apprenticeship, like mentorship thing where you kind of got led into tea, but is that like, does that factor into sort of why you reach for tea?
Yes, I mean, in a way, it was always a calling. I wholeheartedly believe that the universe steps in to help you point you in the right direction, what it is you're most passionate about or will be passionate about. And everything just aligned in a way that I found my passion in this. And witchcraft has always been my passion. Why not follow through and incorporate it? And going back to what you said, how do you get started? I honestly believe in the most mundane ways is a perfect way to get started. Just allowing magic to infuse in every aspect of your life as you step, as you talk, as you move. Let your magic thrive and be awake. Let it just flow the way that it wants to flow, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's I love that. So, could you take us through your like typical tea magic routine in a way like you don't have to be like, "All right, and then at 4 p.m. I do this." But how does it like I'm just curious of like cuz you mentioned the full moons, you mentioned the Sabbats, like what does it sort of like look like in your practice?
Well, I mean, the full moon, the Sabbats, those are definitely the more extravagant kinds. But like, if we're talking about my day to day tea magical life, normally I always start the day with a tea. Honestly, I think I drink tea probably 3 times a day. But like, when I wake up in the morning, I usually I try my best to hydrate, and then as I'm hydrating, as I'm trying to be mindful, meditated, I think to myself, I let my intuition open up and say to myself, okay, what it is that I'm feeling right now? How did I feel this morning when I woke up? What did I dream about? I try to put all the connections before actually starting the day. Or if there is still something that's in a fog, I will pull out some oracle cards or even use tea leaves as a tea leaf reading, and try to see what is it that I need for the day. And I usually start that off by going into my apothecary and have all the herbs there and basically, if I know already, then I let my intuition guide me and I choose the herbs that are calling for this specific morning tea. Or if I don't know, I let the herbs speak to me and choose which ones that are there to help me. And that's when I begin the tea making process. I focus all my senses into heating up the tea, focusing on connection with the steam, the scent, the herbs, feeling the herbs. I put in my intentions. I talk to the herbs. I put my breath towards the herbs. I just basically form this overall spell around it. And kind of like what I just did here before we actually started talking. This is like my afternoon tea. I have my teapot. I choose usually a teapot that is just my faithful friend. In this case, it is my evil eye pot, just to help protect me, ground me. Anytime I like online things, this is just a perfect teapot to put into it. And my herbs to the day chose it was dandelion root and nettle, which is funny because that's my favorites. But choose a faithful cup. It could be a color of the day. Today, red was calling to
It's
me, so
my
red
favorite
is it
color.
is. Not perfect, yeah. It could be white, it could be black, it can be clear, it can be red, anything that just is just speaking to you, all the colors, all the herbs that is calling to you, all the crystals, in this case, my pink calcite to help me speak from the heart and speak my truth. Having that next to it, so that's pretty much like my day to day. It looks exactly like this, where I just let my intuition talk to me, let the herbs talk to me, let the whole process talk, and just share my energy with it and let it flow, let it infuse. But yeah, that's mundane, usual day to day. Full moons and Sabbats, they're a little bit more exaggerated. So a lot more goes into that. Like, what color candles do I need? What type of crystals do I need? What colors? How many do I need? Um, what type of herbs to go into that for the intentions? Like, for example, today it is the full moon in Scorpio. So I probably would go with two blends of mine, like a full moon blend with some like lemon peel, green tea, and then like a Scorpio blend with some. Mm, I keep, nettle is really calling me hard right now, so I've got to go with nettle again. But probably some nettle, some cinnamon stick. Yeah, that actually sounds really good. But yes, so it just depends. It just goes with what feels right a lot of the time.
I love that. I am obsessed with that. Yeah. And again, I feel like it's such an it's such an intuitive way to like work with the energies of the full moon or the energies of like the astrological, sign that you're working with or needing more of, or the Sabbath. Like I feel like sometimes in magic there's this instinct to like really overcomplicate or to just be like, how do I want to work with nettle, but what do I do with nettle? And this is me when I was younger. I was like, what is happening here? And it's like, whoa, just literally like I already have a tea blend that has it in it or something like that, right? Where it's just like, how about you just work with it in the way that like a lot of herbalists and just even regular people have been using it for a very long time. It's so like it makes so much sense to me. Maybe it's because I'm an earth sign. I'm like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it is half using the knowledge you've gained, but also half making it very personal to you because it is a part of you. It's a part of your spell.
I love that. I remember when I was really young, like I loved tea from a young age. I don't know what it was, but I think it was, well, I used to I'm Italian, and like my grandparents would like give me like espresso, like they were like diluted with milk. But so I started off as like
Oh.
a coffee child, like I was a coffee child, and then
Mhm,
when I was a
mhm.
teenager, I started working at the mall, and I didn't work at the tea store yet, but I was like working at the mall, and there was like a tea store there, and I would go there and I would smell the teas, and there was something about it that I was really interested in. My mom was kind of like a little like witchy, not like super witchy, but she had like a tarot deck, and she would like, yeah, she had like the big like cast iron teapot or whatever. So there was a little bit of influence from her, but I just remember like when I was mostly like in school, in college, like all throughout that time, I would like have specific teas that I would like use when I was studying, and it really like helped to like wrap like my senses into the work that I was doing and almost like trigger this like, oh, it's time to study now, right? So I even think like with that, like I got through college because of the of tea. You know? Like that is magic.
Yes, actually, that's so relatable because it was the same for me too. Because all this was in my early 20s as well. I was also in college. So, yes, lots of rosemary, lots of clove, lots of lemon balm. But yes, I totally relate to that.
That's awesome. I'm also like I love writing. Writing's one of my favorite things. And you have two books, which is so it's like this one and then you had a previous publication, right? Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your like writing process. I'm just curious in general as a writer, but yeah, I'm sure T is involved in it, but I'm just curious in general what your writing process looks like.
Well, when it comes to these two books, I guess I was very past Susanna was very smart because a lot of the recipes in these books are actually my recipes from over the years, from like the beginning. A lot of them were, so a lot of them were already tested, trial and error, successes and things like that. So a lot of that, the recipes were already done. They're already here waiting to be put into the book, you know. But a lot of my writing process is pretty much this. This is where I sit to do my writing. And thankfully, I have a son, I have a husband, and they're very wonderful in giving me some time alone to try to write. But normally it's just a lot of sitting, writing with some tea next to me, especially peppermint. I need peppermint to help keep that no blockage, no writer's block. um, Sometimes, especially for some of the rituals here, I'm a very visual person. I like to see things in front of me. So sometimes I actually have to set it up in front of me. A lot of these spells here, these rituals, I will actually have to like set up in front of me, in front of my computer so I can see it, so I can best describe it the best way I can. Because especially in the tea, which is crystal brews, there's a lot of detail in there. There's a lot of like geometric patterns to think of. And so I was really hoping that my writing process was very clear on those instructions and how to do it and how to place them and things like that. But yeah, so that's pretty much my writing process. It's like half focus, half actual visual display in front of me.
That's yeah, that's so cool. It's so unique. But it makes sense because there are like so many, and even in the book, like there's so many illustrations. I do feel like there's I like love these illustrations. Like they're so freaking
Hmm.
cute. I'm obsessed, and it makes sense
I
because
actually had to, yeah,
did
yes.
you take
I
like
actually had
reference
to take
photos?
pictures. I had to take pictures and send it to my illustrator so that she can actually also get an eye of like what it is that I was describing. So yeah, that's that's definitely partially why that was part of my writing process too, where I had to actually set it up. But I love the illustrations. She did such a perfect job.
Yeah. No, they're beautiful. Yeah, I love books. Like I love witchcraft books that have a lot of illustrations in them just cuz it's like so tactical. Like I just think it's so cool, especially something like this, right? That I feel like is very about the senses. It's like you want to see it depicted there, right? We haven't really talked about crystals. We like we're talking about tea. I want to talk about crystals too because crystals was like the other thing where when I first started with witchcraft, I was really interested in crystals. Like they were just, I don't know if it's just because they were pretty or again, if I'm an earth sign or whatever it is, but I just really resonated with them. And I'm just curious to hear about like how you started to integrate them into your magic and into like your tea practice.
Funny enough, crystals, I always loved crystals. When I worked at the metaphysical shop, they were all around me. But, and occasionally I'd be like, oh, wow, this is really beautiful, okay. And then I'll just put it right down and I would go right back to the herbs. So for many years, it was just me and herbs. We were like this. And then I had moved to where I am now, to Alabama, and I met an amazing community of women that were obsessed with crystals. Like they loved it wholeheartedly, passionately. And honestly, it was that passion that really inspired me, because every time we got together, I brought the tea, they brought the crystals. So we were just all like, ooh, 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 everywhere. Um, and it was through that passion that I really started to, connect again with crystals. I wouldn't say again, I connected with crystals more deeply. And, it was starting to speak to me. The crystals, just much like herbs were speaking to me, crystals started speaking to me. And I was like, okay, you know what? Let me explore this. Let me check out this connection there. Like I said, the universe just aligns things. And so I started going more into crystals. I started studying more. And sure enough, they really started to inspire me. And I then started to take courses on crystal healing and alongside my Reiki healing. And I, just like herbs, I then fell in love with crystals. And when in my last book, the Tea Witch's Grimoire, there are crystals that are mentioned in it, but they worked alongside them, alongside the tea. But while I was taking my crystal healing courses, and I started the topic of geometric patterns, crystal grids, that was almost like a light bulb went off in my head. Like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. It made me remember how like tea ceremonies are. When you set up your whole tea tray and your trivets and your cast iron teapots and your cups alongside it, the whole tea ceremony. The crystal grids reminded me of that. It gave me that same kind of aura and inspiration. And I was like, you know what? I need to see this. So I had set up a sunburst crystal grid. And when I activated it, I placed my teacup in the middle of it and I just let it go and I just let it see what happened. And I could just feel and see the energy infusing into that teacup. And I was in awe. It was just, this is amazing. I must share this. So I did. I ended up bringing it to the next gathering we had. And I was like, everyone, I need you to check this out. And I pulled out the whole crystal grid and I pulled out the teapot and I told them about it. And I said, you are all guinea pigs. We're going to try this together. And we did. And we enjoyed it. And everyone was just so blushed and happy. And it was just beautiful. It was for the summer solstice. And yeah, I had gotten so much good feedback and everyone just wanted more of that. And it continued. I was just like, yes, this is it. This is it. I need to explore it and I need to continue. And that's what greatly inspired this book. Everything that's here, it was again practiced and tried amongst not just myself, but amongst a big group of people. And yeah, it was beautiful. So not only is it beautiful just as a solitary, but it's also great for a group setting.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes so much sense. I have a little like group of friends where we get together for Sabbats and I'm like, we have to do a tea ritual. Like that needs to be a thing because I'm surprised that we haven't done this yet. I'm like, this is such a great idea. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna ask around whether or not you have ever had like a tea ritual or a tea spell that you've done that just like kind of left you feeling like, oh my gosh, like this is so powerful? Because I feel like I've had that with certain spells for me where I'm like, I feel like nobody's talking about this and it's so special and I want, like you said, like I want the world to know about this. Has there like, could you tell me or could you take me through like a tea spell or a tea ritual that was particularly like powerful for you?
Yes, actually, I had one just recently with a group of people. So at I work at a metaphysical shop right now, actually called Sky Apothecary, and I host tea ceremonies twice a month. And the last recent one we had was a tea and tarot circle. So the tea ritual that I had was basically meant to help connect us all and to help activate our intuitions, open up our third eyes. I had used a blooming tea to do so. And that, se- that ceremony was just, it blew all our minds, let's just say that, because it was very long. It was maybe about 2 hours, but it didn't feel that way. We all felt like we were just in a space, like a timeless space together. And we all did tarot readings for each other. And it was just all so spot on. Everybody was just connected. Like everyone's message for each of us was almost on the same point, on the same track. And it was so inspiring. It was so healing. It was everybody got messages that they needed to hear or had wanted internally to ask, and it was answered. So definitely that recent one was the most, oh, it was beautiful. I loved it so much. Everybody loved it. I can't wait for the next one.
That's so fun. I love that. Um, I had a spell once. I do a lot of like deity work. Like I feel like the majority of my witchcraft practice these days, it's more of like a pagan deity work practice, but I do a lot of petitioning with deities. I do a lot of just like theurgical rituals with deities. And I work with Hades and Persephone for the most part.
Mm.
And so I feel like crystals are very like Hades and like herbs are very Persephone. I feel like they go together,
I
but
love that. Yes.
I did a like a tea like offering where I used
Mhm.
I have this like white tea that has like peony in it, which is like a sacred flower for Hades, and
Oh,
so I
yes.
offered that to Hades and I drank some and we had set like it was so good. Like and that's all we did. Like there wasn't like any there it was like no frills. It was like I did an evocation. We're both drinking this tea together and I feel like it was so life-changing. This happened about like 6
Mhm.
months ago and I think about it all the time. I do rituals with Hades all the time. And this was
Mhm.
just one of the most powerful like rituals I'd done with Hades and it was so simple. And I feel like it was like the connection between me and him through like the libation, if you will, and then the herbal
Yes.
element. But yeah, I really resonate with what you're saying because I
Mm.
don't know. I just that was my experience with that. Yeah, I think it
I
is
love
such a
that.
great offering.
Yes, I love that. No, I love that so much. I totally agree and resonate on sharing a libation with a deity. Like actually being able to sit down, it's like they're having an intimate like dinner moment, like a dinner date. I love that because honestly, I think to me libations are the most poetic. It's poetic, but it's also like an ancient offering, that has been around for ages. So to actually be able to just sit down, enjoy a moment together with your deity, you feel it deeply, profoundly. I love it.
Mm, that's so great. Yeah, I love that. Um, what this is something that I am always curious about with authors because I have thought about this with like my own writing or my own stuff. Do you remember like you might not even know, but do you remember like the first thing you wrote for the book and then like the last thing you wrote for the book? I'm just curious like in terms of like chapters or areas or spells. I know you said that a lot of these are like compiled, but
I'm trying to remember if the first recipe I ever wrote was the peace or the courage one. Feels like it was one of those two, but I can't remember. I'm leaning towards courage tea because at that time that was very, I wouldn't say requested, but it was brewed a lot, you know, either for myself or for friends. So I feel like that might have been the first one. And the last actually were all the correspondences. I remember that one, all the correspondences for the Tea Witch Grimoire, because I remember how all I ever wanted, kind of like the Scott Cunningham's encyclopedia for book, like for herbs, you know, I, I, I never really cared too much for the beginning, like the majority of the book, but I loved the back of the book, if you know what I mean. The back of that book with all the correspondences for all the herbs that you can use for luck, for love, for healing, all that. I loved that one. Like that felt like for me all I needed. And I remember when I was writing these books, that was like so important to me. Like I wanted that because I had that in my own grimoires, you know? So I felt like that would be so helpful for many people, including myself.
How do you like work with the correspondences? I know a lot of witches who are kind of like more into like channeling correspondences. There's obviously like lots of historical correspondences. Where do you kind of lean in terms of like your the way that you gather correspondences?
Well, it's 50-50. Half is knowledge from knowledge gained, and the other half is from my own experiences and my own intuition. So a lot of the correspondences have a mix of both these things. Herbs that I have tried for, like, if let's say you looked up other books and the herb, said nothing about being used for luck or success or road opening, but that day that herb had called to me, I used it and it worked beautifully, then it went into the book. It went into my grimoires. But this is kind of why I've always said to many people that have asked me questions about how to go about it, how to go about the craft. The craft, while yes, knowledge is so important and it must be gained, it must be experienced. But the other part that is so important is your own intuition and making it your own. Because if you can follow your own inner guidance, your energy, and connect that with the herbs that flow with that energy, then a lot of the time your spells and rituals are going to be successful because it flowed. The energy, the magic is working. So
Yeah, and like I think that for like the conversation around like UPG versus like historical workings or that whole thing, I feel like it was only really possible for me to start really like trusting my relationships with whether it be crystals or herbs or various allies of the craft. Like I really only was able to do that and like connect with them in a way that I was like, oh yeah, this is making sense. I know what to do here. I know where to put this plant, when I had the background of information around like how to think about it. Like I feel like it's hard to just start throwing things into your spell when you don't really know the background, right? So I think that I agree with you. It's like 50-50. Like it goes hand in hand, and as you grow as a witch, you're just going to be able to trust your intuition because again, like you said, you do a spell, you don't have that ingredient, you substitute it with something else, and it becomes a part of like your personal like mythology as a witch. Like I use this herb on this
yes.
day at this time, and you start that
Mm-hmm.
relationship. And that's what I
Mm-hmm.
always say to newer witches. I'm like, you just have to experience and like,
Yes.
yeah, like that's how
Mm-hmm.
we get all, I don't know, like I've just stumbled even in like cooking. Like I love cooking. I just stumbled into random substitutions for things or random recipes of like, I need to use these ingredients. And they're like things that are now, yeah, like recipes I always go to. And it's the same with magic. But it's harder to do that when you don't know like the cooking skills of like how to put those ingredients together. And I think it's the same for witchcraft.
But I love that you said with cooking. Cooking is a great example, I think. You know, it's okay to experiment and to see how it goes. And if it flops, it flops. But if it goes and is just delicious, it's going to be beautiful. And that's something to take into your experience, you know. It's a craft, your witchcraft. It's about experience mostly, most of the time. Yes.
I like using a lot of. I'm really into like folklore correspondences. I know a lot of correspondences are based off of folklore, but are there any like yeah, I'm just curious of how that relates to your tea witch practice. Like for example, for me, I there's a celebrated by a lot of cultures, but it's like St. John's Day, which is like right around the summer solstice, right? And you're supposed to like gather herbs and they kind of infuse, right? And so that's like
Yeah.
a big fluid condenser day for me. That's a big like tea magic day in my world, in my life. Are there any like times of the year or like folkloric, moments that you tend to reach for this magic?
Hmm. On St. Jude's Day, I actually do like to go out and do my best in gathering plants that have dew on it. And I like to try to use the dew as best I could for different types of tinctures or oils.
I love that. The dew is so cool.
Mhm.
Sorry.
I know, but it's so challenging. But it's worth it, though. It's worth it.
Yeah. That feels witchy as fuck.
You feel like it at the time, yes. I do also honor Hecate. So on dark moons, I like to go out as well to gather like peppermint. For me, for with me and her, there's like a peppermint. I know there's sometimes also some mugwort, and for other people, um, but for me and her, we've established this connection with peppermint. So I guess as far as folklore goes, I actually, for the most part, do my own. I mean, I kind of make it, a lot of my craft is my own, not too much folklore traditions come into it, just what feels right to me for the most part.
Yeah, and I think too, like just receiving like that information and those downloads, those personal downloads from deities or the plant spirits themselves around like how they want to be used or where they want to be used or like it makes sense, right? Because peppermint does come from the underworld. Like it's Minthe, who is a water nymph in the underworld, and so it makes sense that Hecate would be connected with that. But at the same time, yeah, I feel like it's maybe not the first herb I would associate with her. But that I love that you came into that and like that is now something that it's more like it almost like resonates. It seems like it resonates with you more than another herb that is maybe more like culturally associated with Hecate. So those are the moments in my practice where I just really feel connected to it because it's again like we are saying,
Mhm.
it's like something that I like had a part in uncovering.
There is another one, I guess it just came to mind, like Bridget. I was actually born on Bridget's Day. So I do like to go and get like fresh milk, things like that, that is associated with her. Fresh milk. I like to wear wool. When the blackberries are grown out, I like to go out there with my son to pick out the blackberries in her honor. So yeah, there are. That is one. Mhm.
Oh, that's so cool. Like I love the in bulk birthday. That's so cool. It makes sense. It's very grounded and it makes sense why it just I don't know. I just feel like your whole chart makes. I literally was reading your book. I'm like, where's the Taurus? Where's the Cancer? I wasn't initially thinking about Aquarius, but I'm like, okay, I can see it. I can see it. And even like Aquarius, it's like the yeah, it's like the water bear, right? Like the like Ganymede like
Yes.
pouring out the water. So it's like, why did I not think about? Like, of course, you're a tea witch. Like you have the water bear in your chart. Like it makes so much sense.
A lot of people are surprised when I say Aquarius, when they ask me, like, what's your sun sign? I'm like, Aquarius. They're like, what? You don't act like an Aquarius. I'm like, well, yeah, my Taurus, my Cancer, they're very dominant. But then if you see me around other air signs, then it's like, whew, we definitely our air comes out.
Well, it's like the breath too, right? You mentioned like you putting your breath into things, right? But I think the water bear is like that's the tea magic right there. It's all of it. I loved our conversation. Thank you so much for chatting with me about tea. And yeah, your book is out, which is so exciting. Congratulations. A Tea Witch's Crystal Brews. And where can people find you and where can people find the book?
You can find me on most social media platforms. I am majority of my time is on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, but you can find me under the Tea Witch blog. On most others on Facebook, I am SM Harlow Books. I also have a Facebook group on there called the Tea Witches Group. And you can find my book on most online sources, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, um, and probably some small metaphysical shops. But yeah.
Yeah, look for it in
But
your
thank
metaphysical
you. Thank you
shops.
for having me. This was really wonderful.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And thanks to everyone who watched and listened. And we'll all talk soon. Bye.